Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the structure and function of cells. So, here we have two definitions. Let's get these down. Whenever you guys see things up here, I want you to write them down. We have structure, which is the physical appearance, and the function, which is what it does. Okay, those are pretty basic words, um, but we have to see how they work together in living things. And in order to do that, I want to first look at this car. Okay, so on the car, and it says, what are some different structures and functions of this car? So I want you to think of things on this car that are shaped a certain way. They have a certain structure in order to achieve a certain function. Okay, so a really easy one to think of is the wheels. Okay, the wheels are round so that they can roll forward and cause a car to move. Okay, you can probably think of some other ones here too. Um, Maybe the headlights. Okay, the headlights are in the front of the car in order to light up the path for the driver in the dark. You have a big windshield that rises up over where you must see out of to block anything incoming or the wind. And it's also you can see out of in the front. You have a round steering wheel over here so that you can turn at any angle or grip the wheel at any angle to make turns more easily. I don't know, let's say you have like a door handles, which are hand shaped, so you can open the doors more easily. So there are a lot of different structures on this car that are built specifically for the function of that structure, right? The structure and the function go together. And this is kind of how we're going to talk about cells too. Cells don't all just look the same, they have different structures based on the function that those particular cells do. So let me kind of continue my car analogy here with some more vehicles. So um, we have this big dump truck and we have this quick, fast race car looking guy. And so if we look at the form, okay, its structure, we see it has large tires, it has a big bucket, it's heavy duty, it has high ground clearance, okay, and all of those things allow it to do these functions, right? Hauls dirt, used at construction sites, okay. It's going to last a long time. Whereas this race car is basically exactly the opposite. This thing is going to be built to be as heavy as it possibly can and still function. And then this guy is going to be built to be as light as it can. So some of its structures, right? It looks sleek, it's aerodynamic, it hugs the ground, it's made to be fast. Okay. Function is being fast and furious, maybe racing. Okay. So each of these are both vehicles, but they have different functions. So they look different. Their structures are different. Okay. Um, what I want you to do in your notes here is do some of these yourself. Okay. So I want you to write down number one, hammer. What does a hammer look like? Okay, so write some of its things here, and then what does it need to do? So why are these things, or write some things here that are related, right? A tank. What does it look like? And then what does it do? How are those things linked together? And then I want you to choose one more thing and write its form, and then write its function. So how are the form and the function linked? Okay, so you can pause this here and practice this on your own, and I will be checking for that in your notes. All right, I'm going to keep going. So once you've done that, now we're going to talk about some actual living things. Okay, so let's look at this leaf first. Okay, so if you look at the leaf, um, it has certain structures that allow it to perform certain functions, right? So this particular leaf is very large, or like it has a lot of surface area here. And we also see that it is green, and both of those things contribute to its ability to do photosynthesis, right? It needs all that surface area to absorb the light to do photosynthesis. You might say that, like, oh, look, it has all of these little veins that um, give give it the ability to maybe like pass water through and nutrients through to all of the different cells. Um, yeah. Okay. Um, we also have this guy. Oops. We also have this flower right here, which you probably know is for the purpose of reproduction of the plant, and so it has all this pollen in here, and sometimes it has nectar or something, so that insects will come in and brush up against the pollen and go pollinate another flower. Okay, so that it spreads its pollen so that it can spread its genes and reproduce. Right. Sometimes flowers are brightly colored like this. A lot of times, sometimes they have things in here that kind of make it look like a target, and that all helps with its reproduction. If we look over to the right here, we see plants have these roots, which are specifically shaped in order to gather as much water and as much nutrients from the soil. You see that they have lots of little branches, and those branches absorb more um, water and more nutrients. And then also the stem of the plant itself. We don't really think much of this, but they grow up, right? Most plants try to grow straight up so that they can reach up into the sunlight. We don't usually think of plants as competing, but they are competing with other plants for sunlight um, and for nutrients in the ground. Okay. So all of these things on even something as simple as a plant, or plant's not really that simple, but we don't think of it as doing much because it stays in one place. But there are lots of specific structures that it has in order to do specific functions so that it can live. All right, let's keep going. All right, let's look at an animal. Let's look at our human bodies, okay? So we have lots of different specific functions in our bodies, and that is because we have different cells that allow us to do those functions, okay? So what gives us our functions? Different cell types. Okay. As I'm talking, like for example, this plant stuff here, I want to make sure that you're writing some stuff down. So, like, what are some structure and functions of the leaf? What are some structures and function um, of the flower? Okay. So make sure you're getting that stuff down. So for humans or for any animals, right? For let's talk about mammals. We have all of these different parts. We have the outside, which is our skin cells, is the integumentary system. This has these have has a particular job. We have our skeletal system made of different types of cells. We have muscular, we have cardiovascular, we have nervous, we have digestive, and all of these are composed of different kinds of cells, and those cells have different jobs. Okay, and if you imagine, all of our cells are not shaped the same, okay? Bone cells are not shaped the same as muscle cells, and heart cells are not shaped the same as nerve cells. So, in order to have all these different functions, our cells have to be shaped in different ways to properly do those functions as best they can, okay? So, we'll talk about some specifics here. So, cells allow us to have many different functions, and I was just talking about how cells are different shapes. So this is typically what we see when we see a plant cell. It's kind of blocky shaped, right? It's not we don't usually draw it as a circle. Okay, but not all plant cells are going to look like these. Okay, they typically are pretty blocky because they have that cell wall, but they're not all shaped exactly the same. Same thing goes with animal cells. We typically draw it as a sphere or just like a circle in 2D, but they are not all shaped like that. And why not? Because they have different jobs. This circle shape is not the best shape for all cell jobs. Okay, you'll see what I mean here in a second. Okay, so finish the sentence in your notes. All cells do not look the same because. All right, I want to see that in your notes. Okay, So your job right now, it says cell forms are specialized for different jobs. Task 1, design a cell that is highly efficient at communicating with other cells in your body. Write 2 sentences explaining your design. So what I'm asking you to do here, I know you don't really know what different cells look like. I just want you to draw a shape that would go with the job of being able to communicate with other cells in your body. So it's like this. I'm asking, say you are trying to say say I ask you to design something that rolls really well. Well, you might draw a circle. Okay. So we're going to skip the second task, but we're going to do the first one. I want you to try to do that. What would it look? What would a cell? What kind of shape would you want to give it in order for it to be able to talk to other cells really well? Would it need some sort of antenna? Would it be round? Would it be long? Would it be tall? What would it be? Okay, what would it look like? And then give me a sentence explaining that. All right, you can pause it here. Take a minute or two to think about your shape and draw it. And then I'm going to keep going. Okay. So I kind of actually talked about these root hairs already. And so what they do is they make a bunch of branches. You see these little root hairs, and the hairs increase the surface area under the ground so that they absorb water and nutrients better. Okay. So this cell is shaped really weird. It has this like protrusion right here. And so we wouldn't normally think of this as looking like a plant cell, but it has these little parts on them. Okay. Form fits function. All right, we have different kinds of muscle cells, or different kinds of, cells in our body here. These are different muscle cells, and they all do different jobs. Your skeletal muscles have these long fibers like this, and they're long so that they can contract, they can shorten, and when they shorten, that pulls on your skeleton and moves your skeleton around, okay? Smooth muscle is in your intestines, cardiac muscle is in your heart, and they are all look shaped differently so they can do different jobs. Your red blood cells are shaped like these nice, smooth, round donuts in order to get through the really small blood vessels in your body, and so they don't clot in your veins and your arteries. Okay, so they just like flow nice and smoothly through everything. All right, here we come to the task that you guys just did for the cell communication. This cell right here is a neuron. Okay, so I want you to draw an actual neuron like this, and so you can draw it kind of like this, where it has like a big cell body part. You can kind of just do it how like I'm outlining it, and then it has like a long, skinny part, and then it releases out here, kind of like this. Okay. So this is a neuron, which is indeed to send signals through your body. And the reason it's so good at this is because this long skinny part is really fast at sending a signal. Okay. So some of these in your body say that go from your spinal cord to the tips of your fingers in order to tell your fingertips to move. They might be one or two, they might be like a meter long. Okay. There might be one, of these cells that go all the way to your fingertips. And that's going to send a signal really fast. Can you imagine if we had round cells? So, say your brain is over here and your hand is over here. Whoop. If this sends a signal, it's just like boop, really fast. Okay. But if we have to send it from your brain down a million cells, okay, if the signal has to go from each one to each one all the way down to your hand over here, well, that's going to take a long time, and that will really be dangerous. Okay, so nerve cells have this really specific shape in order to send signals quickly, which is this long cable-like structure, right? And that's actually how we send signals, right? Think about cables, right? They send signals down really fast. Here is an intestinal the lining of our intestine right here is actually not smooth. It has a bunch of these little bumps. Okay. So what these bumps do is they increase the amount that things can be absorbed in, because they can be absorbed there or there or there or there, anywhere along these bumps. Okay. So if you imagine this flat surface, well, things can be absorbed. Things can be absorbed anywhere along this flat surface, but if we have a surface that is bumpy, now we increase the places where things can be absorbed anywhere along all of the bumps. Okay, like things can be absorbed there and there and there and there and there and there and there. That was really bad drawing. I'm sorry. Okay, so these cells are not just circles.